Good morning, everyone, or wherever you're joining from. At least on our time zone, it's morning. But I'm Avi, head of partnerships here at SmartSuite, and today I'm going to share a screen and just jump right into the product showcase. SmartSuite. We can try to talk a little bit about the positioning of SmartSuite, how SmartSuite compares to other products, and how to get started with. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please don't be shy. Throw them in the chat. Emma will bring them up, and we will be sure to address them. If you have any specific use cases, industries you want us to cover, just let us know. And without further ado, I am going to share a screen and let's dive right in. Okay, can everyone see my screen? We're good? Okay, excellent. I'm just going to bring this over here. Okay, today we're going to talk about SmartSuite. We are going to obviously showcase the product and its capabilities. I just want to preface the following, which is SmartSuite has a tremendous amount of capabilities in it. One of the biggest feedback points we get when people look at SmartSuite is that it looks so simple, yet it's just as powerful, if not more powerful, than any other tool you've seen. So I don't believe we're going to be able to touch on everything. I'm going to try to highlight the key areas in the platform. And then you can definitely check out our YouTube channel, or our academy is going to be coming out pretty soon, or check out our help articles. But there's just a tremendous amount more that we're not going to be able to even touch on. I want to start out with explaining SmartSuite's positioning and where it stands in the current landscape, within the competitive landscape, the competitive product landscape, and just to set the stage for what SmartSuite is and how it can be used. And so currently on the market, you can find tools that are, let's call it similar to Airtable, that are no-code databases, and they're great at no-code databases. It becomes very challenging to run task/project management in those tools for the very reason that they don't have features like sub-items, checklists, time tracking, or a My Work section that rolls up all the users' tasks into one place. And as you can imagine, SmartSuite is a phenomenal relational no-code database. And we actually do that even a little better than Airtable, because as I'm going to show in a moment, you can actually link records not only within one solution, but across your entire workspace. At the same time, we do build in those key features of checklists, sub-items, time tracking, and the My Work section that allow you to run project management. And you'll see a lot more features like that coming to SmartSuite, such as recurring tasks, dependencies, and so on. Then the other part of the market is tools like ClickUp, Monday, Asana, which are great at task/project management, but it becomes very challenging to run a relational no-code database because of the look and feel, the UI, linking records, limitations around that, or just the very fact that anything that you're assigned to within SmartSuite, within one of those project management tools, gets added to your home section or your My Work section, whether or not it's a to-do item, which basically clogs up your entire area over there because you get so many stuff get added over there. In SmartSuite, we're smart enough to understand, even though there's an assigned to field, you have to link it to a status field in order for it to be displayed in the My Work section, which allows us to basically only put in the My Work section things that are actual to-do items versus just anything that you're assigned to. And so really, that's where SmartSuite fits in the current market as a work management platform, where it becomes very easy to run activities that belong in a no-code database, right? A relational database, gorgeous UI, cross workspace, across the entire workspace, linking records, and a lot of features around that. At the same time, it becomes very easy and enjoyable to run task/project management in SmartSuite. And so that's where SmartSuite fits in. Without further ado, we're going to dive in. Right now, we're looking at the homepage. For those of you who are not familiar with SmartSuite, this is the homepage. This is your workspace. So right now I'm in client demos workspace. If I had multiple workspaces that I'm in, I can switch by simply toggling over here and switching to any of these. And then wherever you have that green dot is your default workspace, which means anytime you log into SmartSuite, that workspace will automatically open up by default. And then you can, again, toggle from here into a different workspace. A workspace is like basically your organization or your company's workspace. And within there, you have what we call solutions. So each one of these tiles is a solution. They're here to manage key processes. So envision a CRM in one, HR in the other, project management in the other, any key process within your business. If you're running e-commerce, you may have customer orders in one solution, you may have inventory in another solution, you may have your product catalog in another solution, you may have your CRM in another solution, right? So key processes belong in different solutions. Solutions that you use most often, you're going to want to add a star to, and they show up right up top over here. You can change the display of how you're showcasing those solutions and so on. You unstar them, they get removed. Over here on the left side, you'll see many different resources. SmartSuite has iOS and Android apps in the marketplace, which we're actually, those both great apps, and we're working to improve them more and more. We have a best-in-class template gallery, which you can reach from over here, or anytime you're adding a new solution, you can start from scratch or start from a template. Our templates are really outstanding. We have over 200 templates in many different categories. And within each category, we typically have a more advanced template, a medium template, and a basic template. You can browse the templates and even see the full structure of what's in that template, right? The different views, the statuses, see the structure. And if you want it, you just use the template and it gets downloaded into your workspace, and then you can customize from there. Or again, you can always start from scratch. Our academy is going to be rolled out pretty soon, and that's very exciting. Step-by-step videos and written text on how to get started and understand SmartSuite on various levels. And we're rolling out a certification program. We have an online community, which is becoming more and more active, and we'd love for everyone to join there and share with each other what you guys are doing and what features you're enjoying, ask questions, and so on. Our help center is a very detailed help center, which you can reach from over here, or you can reach from the chat in here. And for those of you who haven't yet seen our help section, you can search for anything and you will find very detailed help articles. You can reach this from anywhere within the platform, expand and collapse this. As you're working through the platform, we have GIFs and images, very detailed, as you can tell. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always reach us over here through the chat. We reply, as you can tell, under 15 minutes. This is automatically generated. So that's our response time for the last few days. And our support team and onboarding team are incredibly helpful. You can just hop on, ask any question, send us a loom, they'll return a loom, hop on a call. And like I mentioned, when you're ready to upgrade, we offer currently 8 hours of free onboarding, which is very helpful to get started. And then we have SmartSuite office hours where you can just drop in. This is something new we just released yesterday. You just drop in, ask any question on Zoom, and we are there. And then our product roadmap is actually also very active, where folks are voting on features, adding feature requests. We are very active. We're posting back designs on features that we're working on so that the community can see, give us feedback, update. And so we'd really love to see you active. We're going to dive more into the actual usage of the platform and how you can use it. And I'm just going to showcase, we're going to start top to bottom, and then we're going to dive into actual solutions and building. Up top over here, this is obviously where you'll always reach the homepage. So if you're within a specific solution, you want to reach back to the homepage, this is where you'll reach it on the top left. Up top over here, you have your logo. You can always customize it. Back over here to the left, you have your power search. You can search for anything within SmartSuite. You can search for anything or limit your search to records, files, or members. Search across all solutions or in specific solutions. We have a member directory, and this means you can search through any member that's within your current workspace. You can also see their profile, and people can fill out different things about themselves, hobbies, certifications, skills, etc. And this is all searchable. You can search by hobby, certification, so on and so forth. You can download the V card. And so very helpful for those who have larger teams and need to understand who else is working with them, different departments, built-in member directory. Start items is what it sounds like. Basically, you'd pin here anything from within the platform, whether it's a view or an app or a solution. You can pin it right here, and you'll have easy access to it from wherever you are on the platform. So this top SmartSuite bar shows up anywhere. So where I am, this top bar is always going to show up. My ability to go back to the homepage, search bar, directory, start item. So this is an easy place to keep things that you're going to often access from across the entire solution. The next piece is the My Work section, which you already covered a little bit. This basically rolls up all of a user's tasks. So this is showing me all of my to-do items from across the platform, across all solutions. I can see over here what solution it is. I can see the due date, and I can change the due date easily right from within here. I can also hover and see how many days it's overdue. or if it's due today, due in 49 days, so on and so forth. I see the status of my to-do item, and obviously each one of these has their own custom statuses based on the solution that they're coming from. But I can always change that status right from within here as well, change the priority, or just click anywhere over here and dive right into the record, see the full record information, go into commenting, and so on, which we're going to cover more in a moment. Obviously, by default, you're on your open assignments. You can always go into your closed assignments as well and see the previous closed assignments, and again, dive right back into them. And then you can also change what you're filtering by. So right now we're filtering by due date, but you can obviously also filter by status, a group, by status, priority, solution, etc. You can add yourself a new task over here. So these tasks are not necessarily added to a specific list or app within SmartSuite. You just enter a task name, description, assign it to yourself or someone else. You can actually assign tasks, but these are quick to-dos that don't belong in a specific process. So this is as you're going on the fly, specific to-dos throughout your day that you're not going to necessarily put in a solution or an app. I have a due date, priority, a status, which is basically simple, open, resolved, and solutions. So that is an overview of my work section. Next piece is notifications, and the notifications you can obviously filter by unread, mentioned, assigned to me, but over here you'll see anything that you are, any notifications from across the platform, and if it's an actual record, you can click into it, and again, you'll reach directly into that record from wherever you are, and then if you close it, you just reach right back into the notification center. You can control your settings and so on. Up top over here, you have your basic drop down where you can control your personal settings, your workspace information and settings. If you are a admin, you can control your API key, which if you're integrating into other products like Ply or Zapier or so on, some of them will require your API key. Some of them are doing authentication direct. Invite new members. Recycle bin is right here. So in SmartSuite, one of the key features is if you delete anything, it still lives on in your recycle bin where you can come back and pull it up. And so I'm not sure I have anything. Okay, there we go. You can restore any record or field that you deleted, right? And so I can filter by solution and so on, but then I can restore things or delete them forever. So that you'll see over here from your drop down. And then over here again, a bunch more resource centers. We have our video center, solution template, our blog. You can get the mobile app by just scanning this barcode and so on. So that really completes the quick overview of the top solution, the top ribbon over here within SmartSuite. Over here, you always be able to see what's the latest in SmartSuite. If you click this button, you can change the color over here. There's a lot of customizations, which we're not going to get into. I want to actually start diving into the core of the product. When it comes to SmartSuite, from a hierarchy perspective, I just want to run through that real quick before we start building. We have workspace, which is basically this entire space, right? So this would be your entire company's space. And then each one of these tiles are what we call solution. And then solutions are for key processes, like we mentioned before. So you'd have a CRM in one, project management in another, and HR in another, or maybe hiring, recruiting, whatever the key processes are within your business or organization. And then within a specific solution, we have what we call apps. So apps are specific lists or sub-processes within the main process. And for example, in your CRM, you may have a list for, let's see if we can find a CRM actually, so we can demonstrate that. So here we have a partner CRM, that's close enough. In your CRM, which is one of your key processes in your business, you'll have a partners list, which is basically companies. You'll have a contacts list. And then you'll have a pipeline list, which is actually the opportunities, right? And then we can, as we'll see in a moment, we can start linking from one to another. But these are what we call apps. And these are basically lists with a solution. And then within each app, you have what we call records, which is specific pieces of information that you're filling out. And you can add more records from down here or from up top over here, depending on if you want to see the full record page, and just add it within line. And then within each app, you have the ability to control the custom fields for the records that you're entering. So if you come over here, you can simply choose from our list of over 40 different field types. And these are data validated. So for example, if I add an email address over here, there we go. If I have an email address over here, it controls that I would only be able to add an email address over here. I can change the name of this to customer email. It has to be unique because I already have an email address in here. But then as you can tell over here, we actually give you the ability to control how many entries. So do I allow one email or multiple emails? Do I require an entry to this field? And is there a default email anytime I add this field? I can also come to an existing field, double click, and I'll reach right back into the settings. And right now it's on single. I can toggle to multiple, and that will allow me to add more than one email within a specific. See, now it's allowing me to add another email here. Now it won't allow me to add anything that's not an email. See that? It's not letting me add that because it's not a valid email address. But if I added a .com, then I should be able to have to save it. There we go. Now I'm able to save it. Now note that if I change this back to single entry, it won't even allow me to add another email. It would just make me edit the existing email, right? And this goes for all the different field types, right? Phone number, you'll have the same concept where it's data validated. You can choose the country that you're in. And then again, you can have a default. You can control single, multiple, require an entry. And then on every of our field types, we also have this, what we call help text, which can explain what this field is meant for. And when you enter information in here, you will be able to see that anytime you're filling out the field from the record view. So if I go into the record view and I find phone, I see this icon, and when I hover over it, I see the information that I filled out over there. And so basically custom fields belong to every particular app, has their own set of custom fields, and literally you can add anything from signature to IP addresses to websites to social media to full name to single select, multiple select, statuses, and so on. Again, you can change, let's say you have a status in here, you can control what's considered complete. You can add more statuses, you can change the colors, you can rearrange them, you can have a default status, help text, and so on. Same thing goes for single and multiple select, right? You can have a default select. A few interesting features, a few interesting field types that you'll want to check out are you can store file and images. You can have a smart doc, which basically has full document capabilities within the record. You have checklists. So checklists will allow you to assign items to to-do items that, again, will show up in the My Work section over here. And they allow you to assign to-do items with a due date to a specific person. And as you add more and more items, you'll have a progress bar up top. And as you check off items, you can see the percentage complete and how many of them have been complete. And then you can always see the progress over here. We also have a sub-item field type. So that will allow you to have your own custom fields and your own statuses from within the sub-item, from within sub-items, right? So if over here, I can have sub-items, and these custom field types are not the same as these custom field types, and I can store information within the item nested under the main item. So under Jane, I can start storing items, and you'll see a count over there. And over here, I'm adding all sorts of different, over here, I can start adding sub-items that are related to Jane, but they're basically their own record nested under Jane. And you'll see over here a count of how many sub-items exist. If I wanted to remove or delete any of these, so there's two ways. If I want to completely delete this field from this app, I would just go ahead and delete it over here. Or I can duplicate or whatnot, modify field settings like I showed, but there's another way to do this. You can also remove from display. So let's say I do want to have sub items on this app, but I just don't want to see it now because it's just too much for me to see on my screen. Like I just want to focus on this information. I don't want to see sub items and checklists. So you can simply remove items from display. What this does, and this actually brings us into views. And so not everything over here is everything that exists on the record. There's actually more. You can control, this is what we call a view, what we're seeing right here. And you can control this view with all the different settings that you're doing, like adding field types. And over here, you can also control what you're displaying. So I can add more things that I want to display. I can remove them. I can reorder them. Or I can simply do that from within here, like I just showed before. I can remove this field from display. I can drag and drop columns. I can resize them, so on and so forth. The other settings that I have on this view is sorting. So I can decide how I'm sorting. So let's say I want to sort by company, or let's say I want to sort by status, right? So you can start sorting by different things. You can have multiple sortings. You can filter. So let's say you only want to show people that are in status, X, Y, Z. So I can do in status, in process, active. I don't want to see those that are on hold, or I want to see those that are on hold and active, so on and so forth. So you can filter by many, depending on the field type, we give you many different options. So you can basically filter anything. And this is where, again, the field types become very powerful because you can start filtering information. groupings. So you can group things by, let's try grouping again by status, and I can have subgroups. So within status, I want to group by company, and I want to do companies Z to A, and I want to do status first to last, and I can have everything collapsed by default, which means I would have to come in here and expand my subgroups, or I can have everything expanded by default, right? Where I can, again, collapse and expand, but it's collapsed by default. You have spotlight. So spotlight can highlight specific ones. So let's say where email is not empty, let's color it with green. So I can see all my records that have an email in them, and then I can add another spotlight and add a condition and say where status, whatever it is. And then again, you can control if the spotlight is going to show up on field and record. So really a lot of different ways to view things. You can control the row size from here, right? Medium, small, large. You can find something within this particular view. So this will find something in the view versus this will find a record or a file within the entire workspace. And then we have a share view, which we could talk about. I'm just going to mention it briefly, but this basically generates a link that shows you anything that's in here and it dynamically updates. So let's say this is a view you want to share with someone outside of SmartSuite. They won't be able to edit or see any information that's not being displayed on this view, but you can just share this link with them and they'll be able to see it. But going back for a moment, all these settings is what we call a view. And this view can be saved to right over here, and you can even lock the view, right? If it's a public view, you can lock it, auto save changes, rename it. So I can call this view something else. But the power over here is that you can show all the information that you have in this app with all the custom fields and a whole different set of other settings with a different view. For example, let's say I want to set up another grid view, and this time I want to call it filtered view. And I'm going to still keep it a public view, which means that other people in my workspace can see it. And I start from scratch where I'm only displaying the titles. And then I can start adding and saying, okay, in this view, I want to show checklists. I want to show the companies. I want to show the emails. And I want to show the status. And I want to show the sub items. And this is a completely different view than what we had right here, right? Because we have completely different settings. And I can start applying filters, sortings, groupings to this view. And again, doesn't mean that information is changing. It just means that I'm looking at my information within this app in just a whole nother way. And that becomes really powerful, especially with the different view types. So suddenly we have a gallery view type where you can see information like this if you're displaying pictures. And again, I can control the fields to display. So I can remove the cover. I can add a description, let's say. Like you can do all those different things. I can have a Kanban view. Sorry. And when I drag and drop things from one to another, it actually will change the status automatically. So if I drag Lisa from active to on hold, Lisa becomes on hold, and so on and so forth. I can come in here and I can have a map view where I'm showing things by address. I can have so many different view types, charts, dashboards. One key feature actually to mention is forms. So depending on whatever your process is, but if it's interacting with outside people and you want to be able to allow people to submit requests or do anything like that, you can simply set up a form, and any of your custom field types that you set up within the app, you can add as questions to the form. You can rearrange them. You can make them required, drag and drop. You can edit the logo over here, change the settings to display a message, a success message. Once it's submitted, you can redirect to a different URL, so redirect them to your website or so on and so forth. And then what you come in here simply and you either embed the code, you grab the embed code and put this on your website, or you share this form publicly. And anytime someone fills out this form with whatever information is in here, that form will create a new record within your SmartSuite base and go into the right view, but it will go right in here and create a new record. And so many people will use this, for example, for an intake process where they set up an intake form. And anytime someone fills out that form, it creates a new record, puts it in a default status of, let's say, getting started or whatever. And then you can start working on that record and moving it along, right? So that's really where the power of forms come in. And again, you can always have private views, which means this is information. This is a view that only you see. No one else sees this. And no one else will make changes to it, but no one else will see it either. And then you can have public views where everyone in your workspace that has access to this app will be able to see it. And then you can also lock down, if you're on the pro version, you can lock down a view so that other people can't make changes, which brings us into permissions. So when we talk about permissions, SmartSuite has permissions on the solution level. So every solution can be controlled. Let's go back to the homepage for a second. Every solution right from within here, you can reach the drop down and you can see, first of all, solution guide, which is basically a write-up on how you use the solution, right? And you can edit the guide and add in here whatever you want, embed videos, so on and so forth. You can change the color, change the icon, rename it, and then we get into permissions. So in permissions, we have multiple levels of permission. Either all members in your workspace have permission to this, or only teams. So you can set up different teams from the member directory and assign different users that join to different teams. And you can say, okay, I want my product team, my logistics team, so on and so forth. Or you can control member by just adding a specific member and then deciding if they have full access editor, contributor, or viewer. One thing to note is we actually in the coming weeks are releasing a very exciting update, which is field level permissions, which will give you permissions on the record level to control who sees and who can edit each field type. But for now, those are the permissions on the solution level. And again, you can reach that drop down that I just showed you from within the solution or from the homepage. You can reach integrations, automations, which is a whole nother topic that we can cover in a moment, but this basically allows you to move things along. If we have time towards the end of the webinar, I can try to touch on that a little bit. Solution API documentation right here. This is solution by solution. You can duplicate a solution, import data, or delete it. Then one layer down is in the apps, and the apps have their own permission capability, although they inherit by default your permissions from, so it looks like I'm not even a solution builder, or it could be it's not available on the plan type that we're on. This is a demo account. So, okay, it's not available right here, as you can tell, because I need to be on a professional or enterprise plan, and this is a demo account. But the permissions for the app by default inherit the solution permissions. But if you're on professional or enterprise, you would actually be able to override and have the same set of permissions per member, per team on the app level. And so I can have the solution will have access, 20 people have access to the solution, but then they'll only have access to 2 out of 4 apps. And the other 2 apps I can lock down even more, if that makes sense. Let's go in for a moment into the actual record view. So these are records, and we showed there's many different ways to display them, and you can control what information you're displaying from here or from here. But there's also a way to see the record in a full page, which you probably saw me pull up a few times, but we're going to go into it right now. So this is the record in the full page. As you can see, you can star this, which would put this in the starred items, like we mentioned up top over here. And these are all the different custom fields. Now, within the record, you're going to see all the different custom fields. So again, as you can tell, there's so many different custom fields here that we're tracking. And even though they're not showing up over here in this grid view, only some of them are showing up. That's because not all of them are displayed, and that's controlled by the view type. I can set up a view type that has all those fields. When I go into the actual record, all my fields are being showed and displayed. Now, you have control over how you want to see things. So right now it's on the 70-30, which shows all the smaller fields here and the larger fields here. You can also change that to 50-50, which will show you the record in a whole different way. And you can control it to a 1-column record, which will show you the record in a different way. We're going to switch back to 50-50 because I think that's an easier way to showcase things. Note over here that we have sections. So I have candidate details that can be expanded and collapsed. Fields within here can be moved in or out. They can be moved into a different section and so on. I can reach the field settings over here. I can add new fields to the record, and which will add it to the entire app from within here, just as I was able to add it from the grid view. Let's go back in here for a moment. Now, sections, let's talk about sections for a moment. As you can tell, I just opened up this record and I have an expanded section over here, which I can collapse, but when I opened it, it was open by default, but then this was collapsed and then this was open. So how's that happening? Again, I can expand this, but why was this collapsed when I opened the record? And let's try that one more time, just so everyone can see. I'm going to open up the record with Peter Noversell. So Peter's record, this section was expanded, and I right away see the fields that are in the section. I can collapse it or expand it. This section was by default closed, and I can expand it, but it was by default closed. The answer to that is from these 3-dot menu over here and the check mark over here, collapsed by default, or expanded by default, I can control. So you can always come here and manually expand and collapse, but the question is, when you open the record, you want it to be expanded or collapsed by default. So if you have a record that has many different fields, you want to put the relevant information up top in sections here, and you can rearrange. I can even start a new section from any field. So I can add a section right here, and that will add a section. I can rename it, and now I can drag and drop fields in and out of this new section that I just created. And then I can control the settings for this section, and I can say delete, move up, move down, collapse. And collapse will just basically collapse it by default, and I can always come back in here and open it. And so that's sections, and sections will really help you organize information on your record, especially when you have many different field types like you see over here. You can see you can subscribe to basically follow or not follow a record so that you get notifications on changes to this record if you're not assigned. So if you're assigned, by default, you'll get subscribed basically. So you'll get notifications on changes to the record. But if you're not, and there's a particular record you want to watch, you can definitely come in here and do that. You can see the activity history. So you can see any change anyone ever made and exactly what it is, the change that they made to this record, right? And then the commenting section. So the commenting section is very powerful. This is here on every record within SmartSuite. And in commenting, you can add information that relates to this record, and you can communicate with people, leave notes about what's going on. You can respond to comments. You can start a new conversation. You can add files and have all the different formatting options. You can also mention people. So I can mention Emma and ask her a question related to Peter Novosel if we're communicating on that. And I can add my question in here and send, and Emma gets notified as we showed in the notification bar up top over here. And she can dive right in and start responding to me. She can react, right? Or she can mark it as resolved, edit the comment. Whoever added the comment can also edit the comment. Note that we're going to save the changes, and we're going to add one more record because I want to show something. When I mention Emma and I tell her something, I also have the ability to assign it to Emma. If I assign it to Emma, that becomes an action item that goes into the My Work section, and only the assignee or the assigner can mark it as resolved. So once I assign, that actually is not just a regular comment, but it's also assigned to Emma. And then either Emma or I can mark it as resolved. No one else can mark it as resolved. You can filter the comments over here, all open comments, resolved comments, assigned to comments, and so on. Reopen, closed comments, etc. And then again, over here, you can reach the record page. You can export records, share by email, copy link to this particular record, which you can then share with someone else in Slack or whatnot, duplicate a record or delete it. So that is basically an overview of the records and the different view types. There are two key features that I'd like to focus the remainder of our time here, as well as take a few questions. So I'm going to cover in a moment powerful features that are linked records, which we see right here. I'm going to dive in and explain what they are and how they work. And I'm also going to explain automations. But before I do that, I just want to pause for a moment and check in to see if there's any questions that came in, if there's anything I can address or clarify before we move on.
Avi, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So do we have a Google email integration that allows us to add email details to a record or task?
That is an excellent question. So when it comes to email integration, there are two things that I want to mention. First of all, we'll see in a moment from the automation section, we have an action that is Google Gmail or send an email, which comes directly from SmartSuite. That's to send emails from within SmartSuite to a customer. Then there is another feature that can be built in conjunction with Ply, which is a integration that we have. And I think I have it on my browser right here, if folks can see it. So this is Ply, and I have it installed. It's a simple, free to use browser extension that we're partnered with, and they're completely integrated with 40 different platforms, and Gmail's included. And I actually use this daily, where I can either open my record, and I have an icon over here in my workspace. So this is a client demo workspace. It's not showing up, but in my actual workspace, I have an icon over here that's controlled by Ply. And if I click on it, I can email whoever it is in this record, and it pulls the email address from the record. And I can send an email from here, and it gets saved as a comment to SmartSuite once the email was sent out. Or I can also go into my Gmail, send an email or receive an email. And then I have an icon on my Gmail that allows me to forward that email or email chain into a particular record within my SmartSuite workspace and add it as a comment to that record. And really neat feature if you want to check it out. So it's ply.io. Emma can probably post the link to the Calendly with them. They're doing personal.
Yeah, it's all there.
Okay, excellent. So they're doing personal onboarding for free. And so if you want access to Ply, you get access to Ply for free. You schedule a 30-minute call with them. They show you how to use it. They even build with you features, and you can schedule follow-up calls with them. And it's endless what you can do. You can send messages to Slack. You can search stuff in SmartSuite. It basically allows you to interact with products in and out of
Hey,
SmartSuite.
Avi.
Yep.
Follow-up question on that. I think someone was referring to if they get an email from a client and they want to add it as a task.
Got it. So you can definitely do that with Ply too. So you can, the way Ply is very customizable. So you can build that with Ply, where basically you have a button on your Gmail that takes any email that came in or that you sent and adds it as a record to SmartSuite in a particular app in a particular solution. And you can control what the title should be, where the description of the email should be, where the subject should be. You can even bring in the sender's information and so on. So you can do that through you cannot do that natively from within the platform. So I know whoever's asking that, I'm not sure who it is, but I know that ClickUp has that capability where you can basically generate an email list for this list and you forward an email to that email address. And any email that hits that email address creates a new record. The way we're solving that is a little different, whereas you can use a browser extension and decide which emails should create records and which shouldn't. And you can even edit information as you're creating those records, if that makes sense. Does that cover? Okay, is there any other questions that we can touch on or any other clarification we can add before we dive into linked records and automations?
I just have a quick question about whether or not the platform is built. It seems like it's relational, but I asked someone on chat before and they said it's a hybrid of relational and hierarchical, which is one of my issues with ClickUp.
Yeah, so what do you mean by, that's one of the topics I'm gonna cover in a moment, which is linked records right here. So why don't I cover that and then you'll let me know if that answers your question or if you wanted to discuss that more. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Without further ado, let's dive right into linked records and showcase the capability over there. And then we'll try to allocate some time for automations and take extra questions at the end. Linked records is a field type in SmartSuite, and you can add that field type by simply searching for linked records. And what linked records allows you to do is to link any record within this app to any other record within another app or multiple records within another app. And it doesn't have to be an app within the same solution. It can be an app anywhere else in my workspace. So as you can tell over here, I'm setting up a linked record and I'm going to first designate where I'm linking this to. So I may want to link from, right now we're in the applicants app, and I can link this to any other app across my entire workspace. So let's actually go into a CRM example and let's try to link that to project tasks. So I'm going to come into my partner CRM. We're going to go into contacts and we're going to go into my other view because I like that one better. And as you can tell over here, we already have a linked record field type that's set up between companies and contacts. Well, we're going to set up a new one just so we can demonstrate this. So linked records, and we're going to set up from contacts to, let's search for a task space. So I have a tasks in agency accounts, which is a completely different solution. I'm going to link the two, right? So we're linking from contacts to somewhere in a completely different solution, to an app in a completely different solution in the same workspace. I can allow or not allow linking to multiple records. In this case, I'm going to allow linking to multiple records. I can require an entry to this field. So that means no one can add a record without linking, or I can unrequire. Now I can control the display format as well. So I can say when I'm searching or looking at a linked record, how much information and what do I want it to look like? So I can have just the title, which will show me just the title, which is what we're seeing here. Or I can have simplify display, compact, or expanded. I'm going to choose expand because I always like to see, the more information I can see, the better. Obviously, you can always have help text. You can rename this. So we're going to rename this link to tasks. And I'm going to say here, link to tasks in tasks app, right? Or you can add whatever you want. And we're going to go back to settings, and we're going to go into advanced settings. So this is the part that I love the most. You can control what fields from the linked record are going to come in. So these are showing me records from my task space, right? And I want to see when I'm in my CRM space, I want to control what fields I see. So maybe I want to see the first created. Maybe I want to see, I don't want to see attachments, but I want to see links. I want to see links to my projects and my subtasks, right? And let's move this up. So you can really control what you're going to see. Next, you can sort. When you're going to find what record you're going to link to, you can sort by, let's sort by status. And we're going to do first to last, so I can see my completed status first. Then you can also filter. So let's say you only want to link to tasks that are actually in an open status, because if a task is in closed status, why would I want to link it to a client? So I'm going to say if status is any of blocking in process, ready for review. We're just not going to showcase complete, right? And then I can save this, and I'm going to add the field. And what this allows me to do is I can link any record from here to any record in tasks, and I can link both of them. I can link one of them, or I can create a new record in tasks. And so I don't have to go all the way to tasks to create a new record, but maybe I'm in my CRM and there's a few tasks that I want to get done and I want to add to my task space. I can simply come in there and I don't find the existing task, so I'm going to add a new task. I'm going to change the status to in process. I'm going to assign it to Brian, and we can add a description and a due date, so on. We can add time even to, we can add links, and this is not going to let me add the link because it's controlled. It has to be a URL. So we're going to do .com, and now it's going to allow me to, and I can add more links and so on and so forth. And I'm going to save this. And now by default, it just added that new record that I just added to my task space right in here. Now, what happens when I open up the full record? When I open up the full record, let's look for my linked records. So my linked records to, it's probably in other info. And there we go. I have my link to tasks, which I just set up. Let's move this up top. And we're going to put this right under description. And as you can tell over here, I'm seeing records that are coming from my tasks, and I can see the information I filled out over there, and I can click right into them and start working on them and then close them out, and I'm back into my CRM. So right now I'm in contacts and I can see records from tasks. I can click into them, change the status, maybe save it, and I'm back into my CRM record on Ryan. I can also link to more tasks over here. So maybe I'm going to link to a new one, or I can add a new task from here, right? So let me remove one. Now I can create a new record. This is really the power of linked records. And now linked records allow you to start filtering and grouping by the linked record field type. So let's say I want to say, only show me tasks that are linked to tasks, right? So I'm going to say is not empty. And now I'm only showing records that are linked, right? So I can remove this link and now it disappears from my view. So you can use that linked records field type in your filters, groups, spotlights, sortings, etc. You can control if you want to display it or not, right? And then the other piece is when you add a formula, which is something we didn't even get into. As I mentioned, there's way too much to get into over here. So we have our simple formula where you have simple operators, you can use fields, but then you can have advanced formula. And when you use the advanced formula, if I use my link to tasks field type, so I'm going to use this in my formula, and if I add the dot notation, now I see all of my linked records field types. And so you can use your linked records to drill right in and use them in formulas without having to add lookup fields. And so linked records is a really powerful feature in SmartSuite and allows you to do so many different things. And because we allow you to link cross solution and not only within the same solution, it removes all the record limits that people have with other products and just allows you to go through, and you can have a CRM in one space, link that to orders in another space, to projects in another space, to inventory in another space, and just have that information linked to one another and be able to move from one piece to another. I can have my contacts in one list and my partners in another list, and I can link from one to another. I can internally in SmartSuite, for example, we have our CRM, right? So we have contacts that are linked to companies. Companies are linked to subscriptions. Then we have a partner list in a completely different solution where we're tracking all of our partners that we're working with. And we have a link from there to track who they referred. And you can just start tracking things in such an easy way and using things. And as I mentioned, use things in automations, formulas, and so on. So that completes the linked record kind of overview. Next, I'm going to
Avi?
go to, yep.
You're probably jumping on it now, but I was curious if you could set up an automation. Let's just say maybe when like you have a new lead or customer or someone that you're onboarding, how would you do that? And how can you create those fields and information that you want to include when that lead comes through?
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to cover that in just a moment. I just wanted to check back in and see if linked records answer the question we got before about is SmartSuite relational or hierarchical? Okay, I guess if there's any questions, we'd love to hear them in the chat. We're going to go into automations and cover them for just a moment. When it comes to automations is a really powerful feature, which we're not going to be able to cover everything right now. And if you want to learn more, we have more webinars that have been recorded already. You can find them on YouTube or on our website, or there's future webinars coming up about automations, but we're just going to touch on a little bit over here. So up top over here from the solution dropdown, you're able to set up automations that run across the entire workspace. And we're going to set up a new automation. So let's just say that we set up a form and we want that every time that a form is submitted, we're going to send a thank you email to the client saying, hey, we received your form, we're working on it. So I can choose my trigger. And as you can tell over here, we have different triggers at a scheduled time. Form is submitted, where record is updated, when a record is created, matches condition. And so for the use case I just described of sending a thank you email when a client submits a form, we're going to say when a form is submitted, and we're going to choose which form. So when a record matches this condition, add action. And with add action, I can do many different things. I can create a new record, update an existing record, send an email, send an SMS, Slack, or Gmail. And we actually have 5 more integrations coming up in the next week. But for example, if I want to send an email, I can send it to the client and I can grab the client's email from the trigger, right? So we can grab the client's email and you can add CC and BCC options as well. So let's say you can CC whoever's assigned to it, and you can add the email of, let's say, whoever's assigned to. We're going to add assigned to, so that way the email looks like it came from whoever's assigned to that project. And we can say your request came in. And then you can say hello and add the client's name and say we received your request. And you can simply come in here and just add whatever information you can format it and so on, add attachments, include field comparisons, and have a message that's going to go out to me as the person sending out the automation, and simply add this automation, switch it on. And what happens from here is we have this automation. And so now anytime the record matches that condition, so let's say I change it to tasks or projects created, this now fires off an email to whoever the email within here is. And so that's just a quick brief of automations. Obviously, automations is extremely powerful, as you can tell. You can set up many different triggers and actions. You can say when custom field X matches whatever, or when all checklist items have been completed, or when status changes from X to Z. You can set up all different conditions and then move into actions and say when XYZ happens, do XYZ, and you can set up multiple actions one after another. Yes, Emma.
I'm curious if you can set up say you have a project or a task that happens frequently with maybe even different types of sub items. I'm curious if you could set up a recurring task or project that happens monthly, maybe weekly.
Yes, excellent questions. In our automations, one of the actions that we have is add a scheduled time. And so add a scheduled time, you can see over here, you have the different controls of repeats every week, month, hours, days, or a one-time thing on a Monday, on a Tuesday, at a specific time, starting from XYZ. And this can be the trigger. And then from actions, you can add either an update to an existing record or a new record, right? So create a record, for example. And this means that if you have a reoccurring task, you can just, through an automation, say at a specific time, date on a Monday, always create a new record and assign it to XYZ person, right? So based on I can start saying, okay, assign it to X, assign it to put the status as not started. So you can set up a whole task in here that gets added to your workspace every time at a scheduled time. With this, we are even 3 minutes over time. So I'm going to conclude this webinar. I'm open to taking a few questions if there are any. Are there any questions so far from what we covered?
I have one again, Avi. Your forms, do they include, what do you call it? Logical operators, conditional logic is what I'm asking about. So if someone says, for example, bookkeeping company, and you're asking a client, do you have payroll? If you click yes, and then because that question was answered yes, another question pops up like how frequently, biweekly, weekly,
Yes.
whatever.
Excellent question. So our forms right now only have required or non-required. We are adding before the end of the year, it's currently on our product roadmap and being worked on, is sections within forms, just like you saw sections within records. And within that capability of sections, there will be conditions. So if you answer X question this way, the next section of questions or the next question pops up or becomes required and so on. And so that is definitely on our product roadmap. Currently, we're limited to requiring or non-requiring an entry on a form. The way to do that currently would probably be to set up some sort of form software that has that capability. For example, Jotform. We have many clients that are setting up Jotform, and they're using Zapier from within here to feed all the responses, and Zapier is connected field to field. So I can set up the same exact fields that I have here in my workspace on a Jotform, set up that condition, and then map all those fields into the fields in SmartSuite. And anytime a form is submitted on Jotform, it would come in to SmartSuite. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. If anybody else has a question, go ahead, but I have a couple others.
Please go ahead, shoot.
Okay, so you were showing also that when you have a trigger, when a form comes in, you want to send an email and you have it linked through Gmail. But do you have a section where you can have email templates?
So when you set up Gmail, you connect your account and it will look exactly like this, where I can set up a pre-filled template that will fire out of my Gmail anytime. It's just the difference between this and Gmail is who the provider is. But when you connect your Gmail account and you authenticate your account, you'll get the same concept where you can pre-fill the subject to pull from specific custom fields, pre-fill the message, pre-fill who it's getting sent to. And then it just uses your Gmail to fire out that email with that template. Does that make sense?
If I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you can use the Gmail and you can create this template, but can I save it for future use?
What do you mean by save it for future use? This lives on in the automation. So anytime this condition is matched, this particular template will fire out of SmartSuite.
See, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, this happens constantly. So anytime a record matches this condition, anytime a form is submitted, this template will be sent out. It's just that the send to will change based on the email that was filled out in the form, and the subject will change based on whatever conditions you put in here.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it.
So Avi, will these messages also show up in the Gmail account too?
The messages, meaning
So you
it,
can have an action triggered from the Gmail account as well. So as long as you have your credentials in there, you can send out to Gmails.
correct. So this uses your inbox to send out emails. So they'll show up in your sent, replies will come right back into your Gmail. It just, SmartSuite uses your Gmail to send out that email as if you wrote it from your Gmail inbox. Does that make sense? Is there anyone else who has a question?
I have a question regarding the emails as well. If you initiate an email from within a SmartSuite via your whatever you're connected, Gmail, Outlook, whatever, and someone replies to that email, will that automatically be, because there's already some form of a link, brought back into SmartSuite on that record?
Yeah, so
showing. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, finish.
Yeah, so that you have a history of the entire thread of messages with that client.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. Currently, SmartSuite only sends out that email. A reply to that email goes into your inbox, not into that record in SmartSuite. However, we are working on such capability.
Okay.
And we can subscribe you to the product roadmap so that you can stay updated on that, as well as Ply, which is the product, the extension product that I mentioned earlier, will do that. Again, I use Ply daily, and emails that I want to, emails that are coming in as replies, I can choose. So not every reply do I have to save as a comment to that particular record. But if I like the context of that reply, or I think it's necessary to add to the record, I throw that in there and it gets added automatically from my Gmail. I don't have to leave my Gmail. I don't have to open up SmartSuite. I don't even have to have SmartSuite open on my browser. I can just forward that into the record as a comment. So we basically give you a little more control over not just every email goes right back in as a comment so that you have long threads, but you can say, okay, this one send, this one don't. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's via Ply, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I like your questions. Any more? They're great questions.
You covered
I do
recurring
wanna
tasks. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Natalie.
I was just gonna say, so you covered recurring tasks are being happening, or you could set them using the automations. Okay.
Correct.
So that was, time tracking, big one, big one. Do you have internal time tracking?
So we have a time tracking field, which is currently a time tracking log. And you can, again, control the display format and so on, control the color. And this allows members to come in and time track. You can time track for someone else if you want. You can track a duration or a time range, and you can add a note. You can say when this was tracked. And this is not a stopwatch timer format. However, that is actually being released in the next 2 weeks, a native time tracking. Yeah.
So that when I start on a task, I can click start my tracker, my time tracking,
Yep.
and stop it or pause it or whatever when
Exactly.
moving between tasks.
Yep, exactly. So time stop, that capability of a stopwatch. That's what I meant to say. Stopwatch capability. So we're going to have a third option here, which is basically just turn on the clock and you can work on the task and complete it when you're done.
Okay. And then the next related question to that would be, where would we, like a bookkeeping company, some of our clients are still on hourly, where would we be able to report on the time tracked for
Yeah,
a
so
client?
you can either set up dashboards
Okay.
and set up widgets for that. You can report on that with formulas within, like you can create a view and run a formula on that, or just the sum. And then you can also sum it up over here, right? So I can sum up over here, whatever it is. So the ways to report on that, if that makes sense.
And then there would there also be a way to, once we've done that, check it off and say, okay, we've billed that.
You'd probably do that with a custom field, right? Oh, I guess you're saying per time, check it off. That's an interesting request. I don't know if that's currently, it may be. I don't know the exact specifications, but I think we can check on that, and Emma will get back to you on the exact specs of what that's going to look like. And definitely enter any more enhancements.
I'd love to see more about the dashboards, but like you said, we're over time because dashboards are a bit of my nemesis.
Now I'm happy to, I put my calendar link in the chat, the last comment. So I'm
Okay.
really happy to continue this conversation and show you more about dashboards.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, great.
Excellent. Thank you, Emma. Any other questions? Okay, folks, it's been a pleasure. Great webinar. Thank you all for joining. If any of you have any questions, please just throw them in the chat so our team can answer them. Request a meeting, you can hop on, and we'd love for you to try out our product. We have a free trial, free forever account if you're not ready to convert at the end of a trial. And as you can tell, it's just it's a great, I'm biased, but it's a great product. Thank you everyone
you,
for
Avi.
joining, and we'll see you next time.